Hey, I don't know if you're old enough to remember some of the earlier games, but the Burnout series was freaking awesome. Yet, we haven't seen a mainline Burnout game since 2008. Yeah, 2008. So today we're taking a look at what killed the Burnout series. The first Burnout game kicked off in 2001 for PS2, Xbox, and GameCube. It was developed by Criterion and published by the former Acclaim, and it focused around reckless racing and dodging oncoming traffic to build up boosts to get the leg up on opponents in this main championship mode. And it was simple, arcade-style racing with only a few cars to choose from, but it was so fun. Burnout 2 Point of Impact started to embrace the best part of the games. You know, the over-the-top, slow motion, awesome crashing, and it emphasized it more in gameplay with a full mode dedicated to crashing called, well, Crash Mode. This was all about managing traffic and just making spectacular crashes, and again, it was really fun. There's something about those arcade racers that we don't really get today that Burnout just really had it nailed. Especially with Burnout 3 Takedown, which was where things got really awesome, at least for me personally. This PS2 Xbox game made crashing one of the main elements of the races in the game. The fast arcadey racing now required you to smash into and take down other racing opponents. The more complex and nasty to crash and how much collateral damage you caused, the better it was for you. It gave this arcade racer like a really insanely satisfying hook. And that was where myself and a lot of other people just fell in love with the franchise. Then various smaller spin-off Burnout games were released, but the series' last real main game swan song was Burnout Paradise, which was released, like I said, in 2008. It had lots to do, this big open world of Paradise City, pretty solid co-op messing around, and plenty of room for crashing and destruction, as well as a lot of good post-release support, like with these new areas and motorcycles. It had a great group of dedicated fans and a lot of love, even if it was a little bit of a different style than the previous Burnout games, but still, besides some spin-offs and some smaller games of different styles, that's the last we've seen of Burnout. So what happened to it? The games weren't failures or flops, but they seem to have just kind of disappeared altogether. And really, there's no sexy answer, but there's a couple of factors to think about. A lot of it is the changing winds of time. But the first thing I really pondered is maybe just the possibility that Burnout is just a product of its time itself, and it wouldn't quite fit in with today or find the same success. Now, I kind of think that thought process is bullshit because there's still plenty of fans of the series, and I know I would buy that game in 2017. But if you think about it, here in 2017, we are kind of pretty far removed from the cool, awesome, extreme crashing action. That's just not really in style anymore. But I know I don't really care. I would still play it, but maybe the corporations don't realize that since car crashing isn't really in vogue right now. And then we also have to acknowledge the fact that part of it is EA. You know, the company that everyone hates is in fact the parent company of the Burnout developers Criterion. In August 2004, EA decided to purchase Criterion, and then they released this game called Black, which was a really awesome first-person shooter that was underrated, but totally awesome, especially considering it was a very different project for Criterion, that team. Maybe that was them getting a taste of making stuff other than driving games. I'll get to that in a bit, because then, of course, after that, they went on to work on Burnout Paradise. Then after that, they were thrust onto multiple Need for Speed games. Original IP from Criterion be damned, their resources were spent on Need for Speed Hot Pursuit, which was admittedly really awesome, and eventually Most Wanted, which did have a slight whiff of Burnout Paradise to it. But then, of course, like I said, the changing times roll in. In April 2013, Criterion head Alex Ward announced through Twitter that the studio was planning to steer away from its tradition in developing racing games and instead focused on other genres for future projects. Maybe they were getting burnt out on racing games? I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But it was probably the good taste of success they got with Black that led to this thinking years later. I mean, it's a far gap and that's speculation, but I don't know. But by the end of 2013, that team was reduced down to 17 people, with 70 folks who were cut sent to work on new Need for Speed games under Ghost Games. Then January of 2014 saw the departure of the head leadership, with founders Alex Ward and Fiona Sperry going off to do their own things. Now what was left of Criterion went on to do collaborative work on stuff like elements of Battlefield Hardline, more Need for Speed stuff, the VR X-Wing mission in Battlefront, and all the aerial stuff from Battlefront 2, so they're still current, and I will say that that was probably the best aspect of Battlefront 2. So Criterion's essentially still around, but they're kind of just a fractured version of themselves. Now, while some game studios can remain the same and keep to their core over decades and changes in leadership, some don't, and Criterion looks to be that type of studio. Criterion founder Alex Ward eventually founded a new studio and created this game called Dangerous Golf, which is a pretty interesting, weird little arcade game that takes all the awesome destruction from Black, and especially the Burnout games' crash modes, and implements it into this game where you smash stuff with golf balls. It was creative and cool, but it didn't change the world. But now we really have no idea what's next and where Burnout even is. There's the action racing extreme game they vaguely teased with EA at E3 2014, but we haven't heard a peep. The Burnout license is still in the same place, but there hasn't even been a whimper of news on that front, so all we can really do is mourn. Maybe all that's left is a spiritual successor. There have been attempts, I'll be honest, but nothing has really caught on yet. If someone could pull something off like Road Redemption, that would be awesome. Road Redemption was a small indie multiplayer game that exploded on Steam this year for being a really loving spiritual successor to Road Rash, another arcade racing series that isn't around anymore but was so awesome. And yet, despite that type of game not really being as popular anymore, it still found modest success on Steam, rising on charts and having a really positive consensus among fans and critics. I think there is room for something like that for Burnout, whether it's from old Criterion team members forming something new, or a scrappy group of young PC developers with the love of the original game in their hearts. It's stuff like this that makes me hold on to hope. These possibilities give me hope. Hope for the Burnout series. Hey, rebellions are built on hope, you know? I feel like the Princess Leia of video games or something. But anyway, we were just thinking of the Burnout games and how good they are, and we just wanted to try and take a quick look back and see where they're at. And honestly, the answer isn't that great. But we do want to talk about Burnout and Criterion down in the comments with you guys. Are you a fan of Criterion's more recent work popping up in other games? And what was your favorite game in the Burnout series? Was it one of the spin-offs or one of the mainline games like my personal favorite, Burnout 3 Takedown? Let's talk about anything Burnout and Criterion down in the comments below. We want to hear from you guys. And if you like this little random dive we did into an old game series or an old developer, clicking the like button is the best way you can tell us that we can do more. So let us know in the comments what other place or game or series we should touch upon next. But if you haven't subscribed yet, you also should, because we put out videos like this every single day. But as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.